I want to spend a little bit of time today going over a couple of little sand traps out there in the world of research. When you are compiling your research, I want you to consider very seriously the source. A good research paper is built on solid research, and your ability to compile good research sources can make or break your paper. To this end, I would suggest a couple very simple guidelines. Number one, if you are using books, books are very authoritative, they feel thick, they're substantive. Somebody spent an awful lot of time to put this together. A research paper is usually only a dozen pages or so. This is a couple of hundred. Man, that's got some heft behind it. But there are books and there are books. For me, I'm pretty liberal on these categories. You want to go and get a little unconventional in your sources. It doesn't all have to be, rigid scholarly stuff. You can go a little bit far afield on that. Give me a second, Zach. If you're going to use books, make them serious books. For me, the acid test on this is author photos. The best books do not have a photo of the author. Authors, for the most part, are pretty homely. They don't photograph well. They don't like their picture taken. At least legitimate authors. An author with his photo on the back of the book, okay, he's a little successful, she's a little successful, fine. An author with a photo on the front of the book, on the cover, run from it like it has the plague. It is trash. It is somebody just spewing crap trying to sell that book in an airport. It's garbage. Don't use it. Popular press. Magazines. Fortune, Business Week, Business Insider. I would include Time. I would include Popular Mechanics. I would include pretty much anything that is read by the general public. Popular magazines like this may offer opinion essays that can be a productive element of your paper, but they should be kept in strict perspective. This is not responsible, respectable scholarship. This is a magazine writer trying to sell magazines. Bear that in mind. Gravitate towards, if you're going to use online sources, obviously, you hear this all the time, .org, .edu, .gov. .com is a warning sign. Don't go near it. Even among the .edus, .orgs, and .govs, you will find a conspicuous number with agendas. Very frequently political agendas. If you are citing a report from Congress or the White House, that's fine. But those people are putting that information up for a very different reason than what you might think. They're putting it up to convince people of something that they themselves believe, often without any scientific support. They have an agenda. That is fine for them. And that is fine for your paper. But if you see an agenda in the source that you are using, qualify that. Understand at the outset that this is not necessarily trustworthy, and assume your reader might be suspicious of the same thing. So you go in and maybe you argue the counterpoint. There's still an opinion might still be valid, but it needs to be balanced perhaps by an opposing opinion, a legitimate opinion, or even better, contradictory facts. Always beware of what somebody is telling you. Think critically.
That's why proof by contradiction. That's why proof by contradiction is so widely used in math, because it's very reliable.
It is.
The moment you see something contradict, you know it's not true.
This is true. When you find a source, a .org, a .edu, a .gov, or even a .com that cites original research, why on earth would you quote that source and not the original research? Dig through for the originals. If you cite somebody else citing a report, that is called hearsay. It is illegitimate. Consider, let's say, a source like WebMD. I get an awful lot of these. Somebody's doing a report on something in medical research and they search a problem on the internet and whoa, WebMD comes up. And they've got a handy dandy little very readable blurb on the problem. Citing WebMD is meaningless. I assume, and it's just speculation here, I assume that everybody writing for WebMD is a 22-year-old recent English major who can't find another job and has absolutely no expertise in the medical field. I think that's a fair assumption. It might not be true. I don't care if it is. But I can't trust that source. But that person, that 22-year-old writing that thing, probably has some actual medical research in front of them. Dig through to find the originals. Reporters cannot be trusted. Researchers can. Numbers, charts, and graphs. These are effective. These are fun. These make me say, ooh, look, numbers. I don't understand them. If you do and you're writing this paper, you're smarter than I am. Plus, you include a chart or a graph and just think about the real estate on the page that takes up when you're dealing with a strict page count. And then you spend a paragraph explaining the evidence by going through and telling your reader how to read the graph. Well, you can see from this one line it trends up this way, and this would mean... And then that bleeds out an entire second half of that page. So that's one page on a single graph. That's helpful when you're working with a page count. Remember timeliness. Stuff changes, especially in a scientific or research realm. We are living in a rapidly evolving world. If you were writing on technology, especially, timeliness matters. In which case, I would almost say ignore, if you're doing research, ignore books altogether, because by the time something flies off the publishing house press, it's outdated, it's extinct, it's pointless. It's an iPod, for God's sakes. Leave it behind. Find the most recent numbers. If you were writing about anything that is current, you have to deal with current materials. Very frequently, when you are doing research, you're getting stuff from 20, 30, 40 years ago. How valid is that, depending on your topic?
30 years ago, there wouldn't be any research on my topic.
Exactly. Or at least it would be wildly speculative and have no evidence to back it up. It doesn't help. Find the most recent stuff you can that is still valid. Cross-checking specifics. If you find numbers, if you find those eureka little statistics or those wild out-of-the-box claims that are revolutionary in your field, temper your enthusiasm a little. Do a little checking. See who agrees with that. See if that is an outlier. In any statistical measurement, there are always quirks and oddities floating around. Determine very carefully how much you or your reader should trust every little datum of information. A paper is also made up of lots of little pieces and general theories that cover them all. Distinguish between these general sources you can use for context and the more specific particular sources that can back up the individual claims of your paper. It's okay to have a source on your works cited page that you maybe don't even cite directly, but that you can say, well, this helped shape my opinion, or this helped shape my conclusion of this material. I don't quote anything directly from it, but it influences the general matrix of my imagination. That's why we have an annotated bibliography. You can distinguish between these elements. I'm not going to use this source for anything specific, anything narrow, but just for a general sense of it. I want you to understand that this is where my head is as I'm going through all of these specifics. That's playing fair with your reader. Most of all, understand that every claim you make in this paper, every time you have a simple declarative sentence, that needs to get backed up. You might think that, well, this is obvious, everybody would say that. Not necessarily. I point out that in the scientific community, gravity is a theory. There is no hard proof. Understand credibility. Assume that your reader is going to be skeptical, because you should be too. The process of research is not the process of just gathering a bunch of crap off the internet and saying, here. The process is in the evaluation of that and saying, this is legitimate information, this is crap. Let's ignore that. But this other piece, which is kind of like the crap, might have one little element that is curious, that is, dare I say, legitimate. Being able to distinguish that is important. And by critiquing the material that way, by being that paranoid, by being that anxious about it, you put your reader at ease, and he's going to trust you, or she is going to trust you. Your reader will grant you credibility, which is the coin of the realm. If you don't have credibility, your research is nothing. If you establish that credibility, you can go awfully, awfully far with what you say. These are the criteria I will be looking for. These are the way you build a decent paper, the way you build an A in this class, and quite frankly, it's the way you build the disposition to be successful in life. Because a research paper is a research paper, and this class will end and you'll hand it in and you'll never think about it again. But that ability to filter through information, to follow a line of inquiry, sifting through the wheat from the chaff, that is the modern world. In an information age, we are all drowning in information. You can Google something and 1,000 things pop up, but it's all crap. But being able to work your way through to find those little pieces of it that are legitimate and put that to an acid test of critical thinking, that makes you a valuable member of society. That makes you a valuable employee. That makes you a powerful person in an information age, because the vast majority of people will get swept away by that tidal wave of crap.